Yeah, it's a pleasure. I've been so impressed by what I found. The conversations with people here have been remarkable, just sort of eye to eye, and hearing them tell me a story about a different way of life that so many people would think impossible. Yeah. And it's quite easy to get lost in it. And while science, I'm sure you understand, can be bent, it also can illuminate the truth. And I've been studying science for a long time, all kinds of mystical experiences, and in my life I've done remote viewing and random event generators and interacted with them. I even funded a team of psychics to hunt serial killers. I mean, such crazy stuff I've done in this realm. And I know how much courage it takes. And so when I heard your talk the other day, I was really, really impressed by the journey you shared.
Thank you.
And I would love if you could share with the people that are watching and listening a little bit about how you got here in the science lab of the World Breatharian Festival. It's amazing.
Wow, it's a long story, but to cut it short, I'll just say briefly. I did study physics, nuclear physics, and got my PhD at Institute in Zagreb, University of Zagreb in Croatia. Also working for 5 years at the Vrije Universiteit in Amsterdam, where this was a joint PhD. And then I moved on to Singapore University. I worked in Singapore first as a research fellow and then senior lecturer and so on for about 10 years. And that was the highlight of my career in this physics world. I produced a lot of publications, had a big team of researchers and PhD students. So it was really fantastic, but I kind of burnt out in Singapore because they pushed us very hard. If you know, I mean, Singapore used to be no-name university, used to have a university. I joined university in 1991, and there were no research university at that time. Within 15 years, they picked up so much that now they are between 15 and 20 ranking on the world scale. Universities, they really push science so much, so hard, they put so much money in it, and of course it was fun to work there. Great, really huge productivity because you have researchers who are keen and lots of money available. So anyway, I kind of burnt out there, and in 2000 the whole family moved to Sydney. Sydney was kind of a change in my life because I love sailing. One of my big hobbies is sailing, and Sydney is a sailing mecca. So I had the agreement with my wife, okay, if you want me to move to Sydney, I'll buy a yacht and I'll go sailing around the world with you, family, with kids, or without. So within 3 or 4 years I managed to manifest the big yacht.
Amazing.
And I started sailing around the world, starting from Croatia, from Adriatic, in 2003 till almost 2006. So I was on the ocean 2.5 years, and that was totally life-changing experience, basically. Yeah. This is where I got kind of reinvented or rediscovered my connectedness with nature and natural forces, and with the other side, outside of this thin skin that is separating us from the other world. And well, I came back. I finished this journey in end of 2005. And I was invited to join university in my hometown in Rijeka, Croatia. Yeah. I was full of energy and I thought, okay, sounds good. I want to change the career anyway. They asked me to help them to set up Science and Technology Park at the new university campus. So I've been really working hard for 2-3 years, lobbying, trying to get money for the project. And I managed to get money, almost 5 million euros from the government and from the World Bank, and that was fantastic. Really, I realized that it is possible, even though I had there were a lot of stumbling blocks and a lot of people opposing, whatever. Anyway, we managed. And then my big my big kind of war started with local builders and people who were involved in building the Science and Technology Park. I didn't expect, working for over 25 years in societies in countries where there is no corruption, like Singapore or Holland, where corruption is non-existent on every level. Coming back to Croatia, in this Mediterranean country, corruption is a norm, and I didn't expect, especially with builders, I didn't expect that. So I wasted so much energy and time telling these guys, this is not the way to go. You can't do it long term. It doesn't hold water. It will break down sooner or later. It's not good, but in vain. So I built up so much anger and so much grief and stress in my body that my body started to give up. I became sick, and I have problems with prostate, with my joints, with everything. I was just falling apart. After 2 years being under such a big stress. Right, and then by accident, by incident, one of these synchronicities that are happening in our life, I came across an article, invitation to join Theta Healing introductory session. I went for that, and this was a life-changing moment for me. I discovered Theta Healing, and a year later, so I went through basic courses. A year later, Vajana, the founder of Theta Healing, Vajana Stable from Idaho, she is a Native American Indian. Yeah, she is very, very, very well connected, and she is the founder of this big school. And I met her, and she invited me. We sort of clicked immediately, and she invited me to join her teaching sessions in Idaho. So next year I went to Idaho for 2+ months, and I've been doing all kind of advanced and teaching courses and everything every day for 2.5 months. And this was fantastic. I really cleared totally all my blockages, all my beliefs, limiting beliefs, and I changed totally. Yeah, this is. Physically I'm the same. I was healed. All the disease disappeared, of course, and I changed. Mentally, of course, I'm not the same as I was 10 years ago or 8 years ago. Yeah, my point of view has changed, and I started to do Theta Healing, but I didn't have time really to do Theta Healing, because going into a deep meditative state, which you need when you go into Theta, I need some time, because my left brain was trained to, I'm a left brain person.
Yeah.
And going into deep meditation, for me, it's not as easy, especially not at this age. When I was in Idaho doing it every day, it was easy. I could see that I was able to scan my partner that I was working with.
Yeah, in the group, with people, with the intention, with the technology.
When I was in that environment, it was no problem to connect and to be good Theta healer. But back home, working with projects, with students, with teaching and working at the university, every day I was not able to go into Theta and work with clients. But another thing pop up is past life regression. I attended past life regression training, and I learned how to do it, how to guide people into past lives, and that was another life-changing experience.
So on one world you have this academic, structured, construction, government, World Bank, corruption level, and on the other level you're clearing your beliefs, you're healing your body, and you're going into past lives. Is that
Yeah, not only my past life, but my friends and clients. I would do, after working the whole day at the uni, in the evening I would be doing past life regression with my friends and colleagues.
I definitely identify this as a business person with all kinds of stuff. I was feeling so great on no food, no water, and then I had 2 hours of work last night, 2 hours this morning, and then I'm having a hard time today, but this kind of connection and conversation brings me back. So thank you.
That was fantastic. That was really fantastic. Guiding people to past lives and seeing them being there in the past life so vividly. You know, they would smile, they would cry, they would have all the emotions like they are real. You know, they were like really there. And then I would guide. Usually, the session lasts usually 2 to 3 hours. You know, so I would take them through 2 or 3 lifetimes, past lives. And the end of each of these lives, I would take them through the death, the last day of their life. Then they reflect on the life. They see what they made mistake, what they had to learn, what are they going to do the next time, and things like that. And then the last.
Where do I sign up?
the last moment, the last breath was very interesting for everyone. They could see their body. You know, they are, let's say, lying in the bed at home and family around. They would describe exactly who is around them, what are their names, and blah blah. And then I would say, okay, take the last breath. They would take the last breath, and then they would go out of their body.
Wow.
And I say, wow, this is fantastic. Wow, so this is not me. I am here.
That's great.
This was something that people will remember forever.
Yeah,
you know? And then if they were really in a deep trance, I would tell them, okay, now try to go up, go up, go up. And many of them would go up. They would see the light, just like a near-death experience.
Wow.
All these people have go through this near-death experience. They see the light, and then they go up into another realm. And then they start seeing figures in the light. They start seeing their mother, father, sister, or whoever died, or they were attached to, or spiritual guide. And that was heartbreaking. You know, they say, wow, you know, they would hug and say, well, it's wonderful. This is wonderful experience when you see. And for example, sometimes we have kind of tension between, let's say, if my father died some years ago and we had some unresolved issues and you feel guilty, you know. Very often sons and fathers have some sort of conflicts.
I imagine it was so hard to be in that work with the light and with love and with sort of this identity of heaven and presence, and then to be in a world where you're working with people that are dishonest and corrupt and violent.
But I learned to detach. You know, I removed from my body all the stress and everything. And it was I learned a lesson. You know that. Like Erika said, I think this morning, we can't be judgmental. We can't really love, let's say, God, and not love our neighbor. You know, then your love is not honest.
Yeah.
You know, if you really love life, and if you love yourself, if you love, you know, good things that life brings, you have to love also. Not you have to. But it will come automatically that you will love your enemies. Because these guys actually are incarnated on this dualistic world with the aim to give the lesson to us, to learn. So we actually have to be grateful to them. And this is what I learned in Theta healing, that, you know, I hug them in my meditation and I say, thank you.
Amazing. Yeah. I have a forgiveness practice that's similar. Forgiveness I send love to everybody around me. Actually, I start with I am the light. That's sort of my reason to become light. And then I send love to everybody around me. And then somebody I'll connect with, I just can't quite get to the love. So then I forgive, and then send love.
Yeah, that's similar. And this is important, you know. Without that, you can't go forward. if you still have grief and anger, and if you hate, this guy or that guy. No,
So
they're all really here to give us lesson, and they sacrifice, in a way, they sacrifice their karma to just like I said in my lecture, Hitler was not a bad guy. He was, according to some, he was a very high master on a very high level who came here to actually advance, to give us a push, to make a shake-up. Shake-ups are very important in every structure. They can't have advancements if there are no shake-ups.
well, it's such a challenging topic. I mean, Hitler is such a great example. I've been thinking a lot about world peace and about love and how love integrates with world peace. And to understand that, I felt I needed to touch the darkness. So I've looked at the Maoist revolution and Hitler's Mein Kampf. I couldn't finish reading it. The beginning, we kind of see that he has this purpose to awaken and enlighten people in the place that he lived in. A lot of things made sense to him, and then it gets very violent and dark. And it's very hard to listen to, but it definitely does every day refine the importance of being in love, and I see it as this big challenge. So it's wonderful.
It's part of our dualistic world. It's a yin-yang. You have dark and white forces. Without this interplay of these two forces, there is no advancement. Comfort zone never brought any. If we are in a comfort zone, you will never advance. You will never move, because you are in a comfort zone. You have to challenge.
Well, I was until I got here. I want to get to the work that you're doing here because it's so interesting. So let's connect it to where you are now. How did we get here?
Yeah. Well, little by little, I was, as I mentioned a few days ago, I was interested in telepathy since I was a child. And I wanted to study parapsychology when I was a student of physics and whatnot. But there was not the right time yet.
Yes.
And then when I started reading books of Rupert Sheldrake and similar, I got really fired up to study telepathy, which is really a nice subject. And it connects with physics very well these days because of the entanglement effect. I believe strongly that we have the protons or our atomic elementary particles that are we are constituting like this 60 trillion cells and many more atoms. They're all virtual. We know that they don't. Atoms have no real dimension, and they're most likely kind of nuclear, or protons are most likely kind of a black hole. And if they're really black holes, and if the brain is like a big computer or kind of a walkie-talkie equivalent, once when we establish the link between our soulmates or mother and children or with pets, I believe that this phenomena will probably be explained one day by this very well-known physical phenomena, which is entanglement. Two particles, when they are entangled, they can feel each other regardless of the distance.
Yeah.
There is a wormhole between them, and there is no time and space. Time and space are not relevant for entanglement effect. And this is most likely happening with brains that are entangled in a way. So, I mean, we can't study this because it's still too early. We don't have detectors to find this, to understand this quantum computer or quantum walkie-talkie machines.
Trying to measure quantum is definitely a challenge.
Yeah, it is indeed. Yeah, but it's coming up, and the advancement in science is so amazing in the last 3 decades, or last century actually. It goes exponentially. So we are a really blessed generation that we live in this time, and we experience all this. So this telepathy was interesting for me, and I thought, okay, I will work on that. But then again, I thought, okay, it's slow. Nobody will understand that. It's too early. And then I stumbled on Breatharians. I came up Breatharians, and I said, "Wow, this is a lot kind of easier."
You're like Columbus. I heard a rumor about there being on something on the other side of the ocean. I'm going to go check it out.
Yes,
Maybe. We'll see.
Like
We'll think about it first.
I thought it would be easier in a way because we have something tangible. You know, we have this mass.
Yeah.
That is, you know, according to all the laws of thermodynamics, the mass of our body is decaying if we are not taking in anything because of breathing and evaporation, perspiration.
So entropy?
Not only entropy, I didn't mean that. The mass, this lady case who is now sitting on the scale, her mass is, according to normal, classical, conventional thinking and physics, chemistry and biology, her mass is going down all the time because of perspiration and exhaling the air.
Yeah,
So
right.
her mass is the usual, what I measured is the usual decrease in the mass of our bodies is about 30 to 50 grams per hour, just through perspiration, depending on, you know, if it is very hot, you will lose more.
So
if it is cold, you will lose less. You don't perspire.
So let me connect the dots and see if I have this right. So you train as a physicist in radiation physics, which is
nuclear physics.
Accelerator
physics.
Okay.
Accelerator. Yeah.
Which is dealing with particles and advanced subatomic policies or rules that govern the universe. And then some things happen, and you have an experience where you sort of touch the experience of awe, or you move out of your existential frame, and this curiosity develops deeper from that. Yeah. And so you're looking at telepathy, and then you find this Breatharian thing, and the idea is, can you bring some science around it to understand how consciousness is interacting with the body and changing physical mass, nourishing or bringing matter in, or sort of creating matter from nothing? Is that
Yeah.
Or from
that's,
something?
That's something that is, you see, this is where I find this tangible component. Because we physicists believe only in things that are tangible, that can be measured. And in our body, it's obviously something happening. You know, it's like when I talk to my colleagues about Breatharians, they just say, forget it. That's not true.
Right.
They are cheating.
I thought the same thing. I had so many experiences.
There must be a trick that they are using. But now this is my third, fourth year that I'm meeting Breatharians level 4 from Victor Truviano to many others. And I know, I've been, attending their processes, and I've been with them for so many times, so much time, that I know they are not cheating. It's a fact that is real, and since it is real, we have to, try to find explanation, not just put it under the carpet and say problem does not exist. Physics is okay. And so this is another moment in history where a change of paradigm is coming. Things will change.
Amen to that.
It will change, and like I said a few days ago, Nikola Tesla said that when scientists start to study spirituality, spiritual effects, the science will advance much faster than in 1,000 years before. Because there is an enormous field of unknowns that we would love to incorporate. We've been always neglecting and saying, no, this effect does not exist. Synchronicity does not exist. We can't, tell to this and that guy to come at the same place, at the same time, by just wanting to do that. And it's happening.
Yet every major physicist of the 20th century, at least, Heisenberg, Bohr, Schrödinger, Einstein, and then the psychologists as well, Maslow and Jung, and even but Freud a little bit, and William James.
Yes, absolutely. They all believed in superior force.
Yeah.
We don't know how to call it, but if you are at least open and honest, you allow for something that is beyond this 3D matrix. Most conventional scientists will say no, they're afraid of that. They're afraid of admitting, But I remember from some statistics from USA universities when they ask professors in natural sciences, do they believe in God? An official survey, the 80% of them will say no. But if they ask them at home, privately, 80% of them will say yes, there is something. But officially they're not allowed to admit.
Right. It's just like the witch trials, like Galileo, right? 20 years in prison, and you don't get burned at a stake, but you can lose your reputation and your credibility.
Yes, absolutely.
So how did you think about that in making this move to come here?
Because I did this activity kind of secretly. I didn't really. I did try to talk to some of my colleagues privately, over lunch or coffee, but I was always, politely said, "Come on, don't be silly. Don't tell me you're gonna read these things. Don't say this to anyone, please."
That's what people said when I said I was coming here too. So.
Okay, so you know the feeling.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I said, okay, then I'll do it on the sideline. So as a university professor, I had quite a lot of time and freedom to travel, and so this was my kind of hobby the last 5-6 years. But then last year I retired, and I managed to get quite nice research grant. So I have a freedom to travel and to explore and to walk around, and so this gives me, this was again the universe gift, really. I asked for it, I knocked on many doors asking for grants, always thumbs down, official agencies, when you ask for this kind of grants.
Everywhere in the world.
But then there are private foundations, and there are friends and angels who take care of us.
That's true.
Which I really learned that it works. I mean, the synchronicity, I had so amazing synchronicities in my life that you wouldn't believe was possible. Yeah.
Well, just to share with you, as I said at the beginning, I'm really impressed by your courage, and it takes a lot to go off the beaten path. And for me or you, whichever walk you come from, there are people that don't connect. I had this experience fairly recently in the last year of my life that, pretty out there, right? Like I'll tell you, and different people respond differently, but lights flickering everywhere I went, paintings flying off the wall, like the same painting multiple times, and some voices that came in phone calls when I was talking to people, like maybe it's just cross chatter, but strange stuff. And also other synchronicities that were sort of beautiful in their essence and were much more comfortable. And at first I didn't listen to them, and they became more intense, and then I started to listen, and they've led me to this most beautiful place, really sitting here with you now. Coming here was a whole bunch of synchronicity, and there's all the stories, we don't have to get into them. But I remembered in this journey, I actually read The Alchemist. Have you read that?
A long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had flipped through it before, but I listened to it, and I remembered that when I left school in grade 6, I left early.
Wow.
I've read 600, almost 700 books since then, but I left school, and before I left, I did a book report on Einstein, and I set the life goal not to be an astronaut or a firefighter, but to find the carrier signal for ESP.
I see. Wow.
And so some similarity and some synchronicity in us sitting here.
Indeed, yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah, because what we are studying here is try to figure out what is this life energy, what is the difference in body when it's alive and when it's dead. Physically, there is no difference. It's identical, but there is something, this breath, Just like with computers, I get the analogy of computer. Computer, when you power up, you can play with it, it behaves intelligently, you can play chess, you can watch movies, it is in a way live, but when you unplug the power, it's exactly the same device. Nothing has changed physically. From the physical point of view, there is no difference. But then yet there is something, there is this power. So what is the power in our case? Where is it?
Yeah,
Where
and
is it coming?
I'm glad
How
you
to
bring
measure it?
I'm glad you bring computers into the mix, because this is something I think a lot about. I spend a lot of time in San Francisco, and in the news around the world we talk about Facebook and Amazon and various algorithms, the social algorithms that are used in China, or the AI kill shots that happen in the Middle East with drones that fly autonomously. These are all things that in our world are becoming progressively scarier.
Yeah.
And as we approach sort of this idea of the singularity with nanomachines, quantum computing, AI, it becomes a world that humans either change or die, I really believe. I believe that in our current state, our material frame, that we won't make that transition. And when I go to TED every year, I see that idea sort of propagating and moving, and it's sort of the energy of TED is technology versus humanity, and they're trying very hard to change that. But I believe what we're speaking about is really the essence of the possibility of humans. I mean, to think that a person could live without food and water is a wild idea. To know that time is nonlinear, but that people can have accurate premonitions of so statistically improbable things, or that we can see through, I mean, the remote viewing and remote perception work. It's a real thing. It's absolutely defined. And so I'm really curious about the sort of what you're finding as you try and measure and you try and look at this phenomenon through the lens of science. What's happening?
Well, you see, I mean, I'm measuring the weight of breatharians, level 3 or 4, and expecting that their weight will behave in a different way than the normal solid food eating people.
Mm-hmm.
When I sit, or whoever is a solid food eating a person, when they sit on the scale, I can see the weight going down.
Mm-hmm.
You know, this 30 to 50 grams per hour when they sit quietly in the meditation. But for breatharians, I found that it's very often steady, and in few instances, I had a very sharp and very well-defined increase in the weight. Yeah, so that was amazing, like 150 grams in 10 minutes.
Wow, you're at the cutting edge here.
It's really amazing. This is against all physical laws.
Yeah.
The law of conservation of mass and conservation of energy.
Maybe the Newtonian materialistic, but the quantum makes space for it, for sure.
It does, but not in this way. Not 150 grams in a cold, not cold, but in the body.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it cannot be. Cold fusion was in some 20 plus years ago, and many scientists tried to reproduce cold fusion, and they never succeeded. You know, so and this would be kind of equivalent of cold fusion.
Yeah.
Actually, mass is created from somewhere. It's channeled. They channel the mass, and the mass is increasing. And I have been measuring their. I was puzzled. What if they have, for our metabolism to run, we need roughly 2,000 calories per hour.
Okay.
Per day.
Per day, yeah.
Yeah. And which is equivalent of about 200 to 300 grams of fat.
Mm-hmm.
So if I or glucose. So if I am not taking during one day, if I am not taking any calories, just drinking water, my glucose, accumulated glucose in liver or in body, in blood, will burn and give me the energy for metabolism to run my heart and brain and move around. And I will use about 2,000. And my mass will, during this day, will go down if I'm not taking anything in. So my mass, I will usually lose like 500 grams or more per day if I don't take any food, which is burning. You're burning your fat or your carbohydrates. And the result of burning is carbon dioxide. We expel from our lungs carbon dioxide, and the concentration of carbon dioxide is usually between 4 and 5% in the expelled air.
Mm-hmm.
Carbon dioxide in the normal air is 400 ppm, which is 0.04%. So the concentration of carbon dioxide is very high, and it's easy to measure. So I have the carbon dioxide meter. So when I let breatharians, or let's say not breatharians first, when I let them breathe through this device, I can measure carbon dioxide going up and down as they expel the air.
Yeah.
And then I thought, okay, if breatharians are not powered by sugar, by carbohydrates or fat, then the carbon dioxide coming out from their lungs will have a lower concentration, or maybe not no carbon dioxide at all.
Yeah.
So I tried, and their concentration of carbon dioxide in the expelled air is exactly the same as ours. Meaning that they are burning, so they are creating, their liver is creating carbohydrates, and they are burning, so the burning process, ATP in our muscles, which give us energy, is exactly the same. The processes are the same. So they are somehow creating carbohydrates in their liver, sugar.
I just want to check for 1 sec. How are we doing with the light and stuff? Is that working?
Yeah, it's...
Is it on?
Do you want to put a sign on the door that says filming or something?
It's too late.
Yeah?
It's too late. Let's just roll with it. Just keep
Okay.
going.
Let's put signs up for the future, because
Well, yeah, at least.
yeah, I think just maybe close the door or lock it or something. It makes it a little bit hard for us to. Will that be a huge problem if we do that?
Not for me. I think it's not a problem. I mean, there are not many people coming, but there are some residents here. They sort of go up and down.
Oh, I see.
For the purpose of the interview, like, it's fine.
Okay.
Like, they get the
Yeah.
point
Okay.
from a cinematic
It's
perspective.
good. We're on the hotspot now. That's good.
So what I was saying is this carbon dioxide was one proof that they have the same mechanism of releasing the energy in the
Yeah.
body. And the other was measuring glucose level. It was always the same, just like anybody who is in the fasting process. If you are fasting for a week,
So carbon dioxide's the same. Glucose
glucose
is
level
the
is
same.
the same. It's around between 2 and 3. For normal people, it's around between 4 and 5 or 6.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And they have 2 or 3, which is normal for those people who are fasting. Then I also measure ketones in their urine.
Okay.
Ketones are also the same level.
Yeah, ketones. Yeah.
Ketones are very high. So, which means again that they are burning
Consuming fat.
fat.
Yeah.
And so these parameters are all as expected. So now I am really waiting for an inspiring breatharian who is able to, with his willpower, change his mass. So we'll see. It's looks like it's happening here something. You see?
We'll have to look at this all after. This is
Yeah.
good. We'll do a little pan around and see it.
Yeah.
So
And then we'll look for explanation. The idea is I want to spread the word. I want to publish the paper in peer-reviewed journal if we get this effect measured properly.
yeah.
So I have to, satisfy some requirements. Repeatability, reproducibility, and also make sure that I have enough samples, blank and non-blank and real, so
Lot
that
of
I
work,
can
yeah.
distinguish my signal from the background, from the noise or from normal samples.
Did you publish your negative results on carbon dioxide and?
No, not yet. I have not published anything yet. I'm
Okay.
quite conservative. I'm quite, I don't want to jump to conclusion and make,
Yeah.
negative publicity for the whole story. I would prefer to have a real effect, measurable, and then come up with results. And hopefully one day my colleagues will realize that this is fantastic mine of new ideas, new frontiers, new way of going into a new dimension of research. And then it will, once when it happens, it will go exponentially as it always goes.
Yeah.
And
Well-
of us will find the solution and figure out how is mass created in the body. Because obviously mass is being created in their body because they are losing the mass all the time through perspiration, through skin falling off, hair growing, nails growing, everything is functioning on that.
So let's come back to the results. We were talking, and so you've seen some significant results, and then at other times you've seen, I'm not seeing what I'm expecting to see. Is that right?
Yeah.
A little elusive.
Yeah, it is, because it's difficult to, first of all...
Like, go Breatharian, go. Give me your effect, and it's not...
Breatharians are difficult to work with because they are very sensitive, they don't kind of really... Their feet is not on the ground.
Yeah.
You can't really talk with them just like we talk because we are on the same page, and they're somewhere, in higher spheres, and they don't really like to sit. Young people are different, and new generation is different. But my generation of Breatharians, they are very sensitive. Most of them, when I ask them, they say, "Oh, no, I wouldn't. I prefer not to do any measurements." Yeah. So I think things will change, and I see many. The movement is so strong now. In the last 5 years, I see this processes mushrooming all over the world.
Everybody teaching a process of some kind.
There's so many processes going on all the time, and there are hundreds and hundreds of people going through. So these are all believers. There is something changing in this global network, and thanks to the internet, we are really blessed that the knowledge is spreading so fast, and we communicate, we move from continent to continent. There are no borders anymore.
Yeah.
This is fantastic. The knowledge is spreading, and like Rupert Sheldrake and many others said, that there is this global consciousness, morphogenetic field, which is connecting us all. We all think about the same problem, and like a big brain. And I'm sure we will very soon find the solution and break this barrier.
Well, this I don't just think is an interesting adventure. I think it's a paradigm. Like, we speak about technology, we speak about climate change.
Yeah.
I feel like these things have been in our society for so long, and now as we've created technology, it's mirroring us in the most powerful ways.
We have tools to measure now, and because this has so fine effects, it's very difficult to measure.
It's not just measure, but it's change. What I believe, my personal beliefs, is that humanity has to make this leap. You were talking about Hawkins the other day. Somebody gave me the Hawkins book, Power versus Force, when I was just diagnosed from cancer. And I got this thing, and I looked at it, and I read a little bit, the first little bit, and then I put it away because I was basically anger, grief, shame. I was that guy, and that's why I was sick. And so as I elevated up that scale, I changed, and the illness slowly started to fade away. But that elevation process is so complex. And when we look at his scale, we talk about this sort of frame of enlightenment and these higher forms of love, and how synchronicities appear, the cities appear, and it's always been that way through history. Now, as a species, I think that leap is, to me, the most promising solution to our future, that we understand these things, that a person can sit on a scale and change their mass by the power of their consciousness. I've touched enough to know that that's a strong possibility, and so the work you're doing is hopefully paving that way that we can bring people along with.
I hope so. Yeah, I want to mention here about the changing of paradigm. There is very big similarity with something that happened about 300 years ago here in this area. Lazzaro Spallanzani.
Okay. I don't know. I know some of them.
Lazzaro Spallanzani was a scientist who lived. He was born in 1720 or something like that.
Okay.
And sometime in 40 or 50, he was interested in many effects. And by the way, he was really a reputable biologist. He was the first who realized that for bringing a new life form in this reality, you need an egg and sperm.
Okay.
And then he did the first in vitro insemination with dogs in 300 years ago, and he was very respectful scientist at that time. for this effect and many other things that he discovered. And then he was interested in bats, how the bats fly. Because everybody knew that bats fly in the dark, the deepest darkness, they can still find their way around. So he was thinking, okay, like a real scientist, he was going deducing, trying to figure out the solution by, he said, okay, we have 5 senses. Mouse, bat has also all these 5 senses like us. And he started to close one by one. He would say, okay, let's close their eyes and see what will happen. Are they using some special vision? He closed their eyes and let them fly, and they were still moving around in the darkness, no problem. Say, okay, so it's not ice. Then he started closing it. He put some cloth on their wings to make sure that they don't have some detectors on their wings touching or feeling the air or something like that. Still flying well. And then he closed their mouth. They're bumping into the walls. And so he said, okay, mouth. And then he closed their ears, let them fly with the closed ears, the same. Then, of course, he said, must be a sound. They must be, producing some sound and listening to their sound. And so he discovered the echo orientation 300 years ago, and he was ridiculed for that throughout his life. He published a paper, but the paper was hardly accepted. Nobody really took it seriously because there is no sound. These bats don't produce any sound.
I see, wow.
They couldn't hear. They say, there's no sound. How can you say that
If
you
I
are
can't
hearing
hear
by
it, it's not
sound?
there.
Yes, if you can't
Yeah.
hear it, it's not there. The effect is,
If I'm not a breatharian, it must be not true.
That's right. The same is with prana. You see, if we can't measure it, it does not exist.
Yeah.
Which is stupid. We have facts, and we have to try to understand facts, not to put facts under the carpet.
Well, measure or experience.
That's right.
If you experience it, you know it's true. If you
Yeah.
measure it, but in theory, not everybody can experience it, and so this is part of how I'm thinking.
Experience is always subjective, and that's why social sciences are not real sciences. For us physicists, we say, okay,
Maybe
you
as
can't
a
measure
physicist,
it. Yeah.
but that's what got you here. Your experiences, right?
Yeah.
Without experience, you
Yeah, but
wouldn't
that's
have
not
been here.
enough for my colleagues. If
Not
I tell
for your
them,
colleagues. Well,
yes, it is like that.
If
Listen
somehow,
to me.
if somehow we created an experience for
Yeah.
people, it's kind of like stepping stones, right?
Yeah. That's what I want to have hardcore proofs. That
Yeah.
we have measurements. That's why this
So-
I call more tangible than.
Okay, so what happens? What happens if the mass component isn't that you can't get the signal under control? Do you have any other ideas?
Well, I'm sure that sooner or later we'll get someone who is able to control the mass at will. It's either during the night or during the sitting. I'm sure we'll get. I got quite a number of signals that are positive.
Yeah.
That the mass changed. Last night, Patrick was sitting on the scale, and his mass. He changed the way of meditation, and his mass went up for 20 grams.
Wow.
Just by changing his
Different
the way
style.
Different style.
Oh, I love it. This is great.
And the same happened with Diane, who was sitting with the lady from. I can show you later the graphs. It was fascinating to see the graph, the weight going up, for 150 grams in 10 minutes.
Yeah. Well, maybe
And
I
this
can
has
try this a
never-
little later.
This has never happened in the history. It's like
Yeah.
this is the first
First
measurement
time.
in
Congratulations.
in the history of science. And that's why I am a bit hesitant to go out with the publication. And it will certainly not be accepted in peer-reviewed journals.
No, don't say
Science
that.
citation.
Don't say that. Here's
I
what I'd
tried.
like to do. I'd like to help support your work
Okay.
with financial contribution.
Okay.
I'd like to try it because that's kind of cool, even though I'm just a baby here.
Okay.
And I'd like to help introduce you to some scientists that I know. I've been funding science in this space for a decade or so.
Okay.
So there's a couple of people that could probably help you
Okay.
to think about which publications and what that strategy
Okay.
is. The the Jedi scientists need to work together. So I'm serious about that, and I'd like to stay in touch and support you.
I really appreciate it. Yeah, you see, that's another synchronicity. Yeah, universe is, as case know very well, we are all part of the big network, and we all work for advancement of the species. Like I said a few days ago, there is this powerful force which is working against entropy. Entropy is trying to dissolve everything into a zero state.
You're talking about syntropy, right?
Syntropy is opposite. It's creative force. It's just like in Vedas. Shiva. What are the three forces? No, I can't remember the name.
You put me on the spot.
The three forces: creative force, destructive force, and the status quo.
Are you thinking Shiva, Vishnu, and Brahman?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Something like that.
Yeah.
I should know.
Yeah. So this knowledge is obviously given to them from the source.
Yeah.
And this is what we are discovering now. There is obviously, we know, and like I said, Ilya Prigozhin, a Belgian scientist, got his Nobel Prize in 1977 for studying and coming up with the obvious proofs that there is a creative force in nature that creates more and more complex structures.
Yeah.
If there is energy, of course, you have to provide energy.
Do you know the Pear Lab at Princeton?
Yes.
So Brenda is a good friend of mine, and I met Bob before he passed.
I see.
It was a little bit of a torch passing thing. I was sort of challenging him around the we'll say microscopic, although they did have some macroscopic PK. I was challenging him around how he was linking that with synchronicity, and that was a big thing for him. They saw the effect, and then they didn't see the effect, and then they saw the effect, and then they didn't see the effect. And a lot of it has to do with what we might call consciousness, and our big C and our small c, the us connected to the universe and us present here. And we haven't really been able to quantify it, which is where I'm going with our work with Evolve, which is how do we quantify the human state, how do we quantify the emotional state, the spiritual state that allows us to link to these things. Because I think we'll probably see that. I'd love to collaborate with you on the research and put some of our device on and look at algorithms as people are meditating to see if we can link up a signal. Because every morning, not every morning, I'm traveling a lot. I leave it at home. I call him Reggie. He's my random event generator. I have him on the desk at home. And I sit with him and I meditate. And sometimes I'm right on that line. I can move it up or down and move it out of the parabola of statistical significance. And then other times, it just does not talk to me. And I honestly can't say, it's only about a year I've been playing with that, but I honestly can't say what the difference of consciousness is other than love. There's a state of love that's some kind of divine love that I've heard some of the Breatharians interviewing talk about, that it's some kind of place where we're connected with divine intelligence, where we love ourselves so deeply, we love others, we dissolve those boundaries. Yeah. Do you have some thoughts about that?
Like I mentioned on this talk, if you remember, I was talking about pairing force. Pairing force, the need to get together from their lowest level, elementary particles like protons, not protons, but electrons and quarks, they have need to pair up. They're always in pairs, spin up, spin down. We don't know exactly what spin is and what is this really spinning. We name it spin. But there is this need to get together, and this is the lowest state for them, lowest energy state.
Yeah.
And they're together, they're in a comfort zone, just like us. And when you go up in the hierarchy, from elementary particles to atoms, to molecules, thanks to the pairing force, more and more complex structures are formed. Molecules exist only because of the pairing force. Electrons get together, and hydrogen and hydrogen atoms get together and they form H2.
I brought up pair because that's what Brenda says. Yeah. I asked Brenda, of all the work at at Princeton.
Yeah.
What was the main principles that she came up with that were so important to the work? And she said syntropy. She believes the same thing. I'd love to connect you two for a phone call.
Wow.
She's talking about how Bob and her, like a male-female connection paired together, and then in the work at Pair, they found that two couples that were bonded were able to collaborate and move better than they could individually. There is something about that, about love. And it also brought up one other thing in our talk. You were talking about a gentleman here, the scientist in the biology realm with the bats. Beautiful synchronicity again. I was in Barbados for a business meeting a couple months ago, and I took 9 books with me, and work was more than I thought, and I only got 1 book done. But this book was The Man Who Could Fly, about a man named Joseph of Cupertino who lived in Italy here, in Assisi, just 56 minutes from here. That's what Google told me. I'm going before I leave. And you know, synchronicity led me here. But this man had a special pairing with the divine. In many ways he was absolutely dysfunctional. He got to become a priest by sort of divine luck or synchronicity as well. And he had this thing, apparently, as hundreds of testimonies before the Inquisition and the Papal Inquisition twice, 2 Papal Inquisitions. The testimony said that he would do the Eucharist or Mass and participate with Eucharist, and he would also look at the Virgin Mary. And he so had this longing to be with God or to connect with the Virgin Mary, that was a special thing for him, that when he had that experience, he would snap into trance and levitate.
Really?
Hundreds of people said that they saw this. You know, they swore under oath that if they were lying, they would probably get burned at the stake too. I mean, it was a really serious thing back then. And so I always thought levitation was crazy too, about as crazy as breatharian. I can't say which one was further out.
The same category.
Yeah, the divine nature of humans.
And teleportation. I think these are all kind of technology that the more developed civilizations are handling a long time ago, but we are kind of...
We're almost there!
We're almost there.
Because of people like you!
It has been around. I believe that all these big structures that previous civilizations built, like pyramids and these big pyramids in South America, they were built by technology that is forgotten. I mean, it has been known, but it's gone. Yeah, I think in Florida you have this a castle, they call it Coral Castle.
Right. I've looked into that a little bit, yeah.
Look at that.
Yeah.
It was built by the guy who was in love with a lady who was from, I don't know, a society that high ranking, he could not reach her. He was so mad in love that he was hoping that by building this castle he will get her attraction and she will start come to him. So he built this huge castle with big rocks, coral rocks during the night, which is mission impossible for technology of those days.
So much mystery. Yeah.
So there's a lot of mystery there, how he moved these big coral blocks. And apparently he never discovered, never told anyone what technology he used, but they found some tools in his garage and he died, which were kind of a musical instrument. He was using some vibrations, some instruments to produce vibrations, and with this vibration he was able to move obviously these big blocks of coral rocks.
Through the power of love. Okay, so summarizing. So, if we were to sort of summarize for our audience.
Pairing force. For me, from my point of view, love equals to pairing force.
Yeah.
And pairing force is inherent to all particles, everything. So from the very small elementary particles to us. On our level, we call it love. But it's a need to pair up and to reproduce and to evolve. Yeah, it's evolvement of the species. I think that the syntropy creates kind of intelligent beings. Reminds me of things that can develop on all levels. You know, bacteria, viruses, and up on the hierarchy. They all have need to procrastinate, and to develop and to evolve. Yeah, thanks to these forces. Yeah. So this is the inherent feature of nature, and it's so intelligent that we call it God, because we don't know how to explain it. But it's natural, it's a natural phenomenon.
I think we could probably talk all day. We're in the kitchen here.
I
Of
think
the,
we solved the
of
problem of God, and this is the end for now.
We're going to have to talk some more in the future for sure.
Okay.
And I'm serious about supporting your work.
Thank you.
I mean, we're in such a beautiful place here. Are you staying here or are you leaving?
Yeah, I've been here already nearly 3 weeks.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay.
I'm doing my process here as well.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So let me ask you one question to close. And I don't know if you've thought much about this. I mean, for people that are looking at the world and perhaps have lost hope, they see, robots taking over. I was in a vegan restaurant. I said, what do you see the future look like? She said, robots. That's what the server said in the restaurant. I'm like, okay, we got to do something about this. So people that are looking at that are looking at climate change or looking at war. I mean, we have trade wars, that escalating. A lot of people feeling a lot of pressure and lack of hope. This work that you're establishing, these forces, these possibilities, when you think about them being validated by science, when you think about that message propagating out, what kind of world do we build? What could the world look like?
Well, I'm really very optimistic here. I believe in future. I believe that nature is constructed in such a way that is evolving, and this world of duality that we enjoy here, we actually enjoy. I mean, it looks like we are always in a war, but the war, as I mentioned earlier, is a catalyzer for new developments. It's actually sparking and it's pushing the limits of ignorance. If there is no war, there will be no progress. So these dark and white forces are part of the natural game. It's a game. And I believe that our souls are, they ascend on earth to experience this game. It's just like us going to cinema, to have some challenge, okay? But this is cinema without a scenario and without knowing the end. And we don't need to. We don't know actually that we are aware, at least most of us are not aware that we are actually much more than our bodies. And coming on the earth is just to get some experience to enrich your soul. Yeah. So it's nothing bad. No, I mean, even if the total disaster happens, which I believe will not on earth, we will. Our high self lives in another sphere. So this is just a little game, a kind of a kindergarten, that we come here, play a little bit, learn the lesson and go back. And then if you want we can come back again. Yes. But I think all this big fuss about new technologies and IA and wars and I'm very green, and when I was younger I was really a big supporter of green movements. Now I don't think it's very important. It's of course I'm doing my best to be green, to be vegetarian, and to use as much as less energy as needed. But we really have to thank to oil, and we have to thank to like I said, to capitalism to produce this fast growth. Now, in the last 100 years, we developed like exponentially, so much more than in thousands of years before. So all these negative talks, it's not good, this change or that change is not good. These are all conservative peoples who don't want to change. I see world coming.
We may differ on that. I mean, I'm a business guy. I grew up as a business guy, and the purpose of business is convincing you that you need things. You need a bigger logo. You need to eat more. You need more stuff.
Absolutely.
I see capitalism as very destructive to our planet. I see GDP as very destructive, and I mean, just my personal belief here is that this is actually the intersection that we find ourselves at. It's kind of like looking at religion. Religion, you could say, is empowering and it brings spirituality to the planet. But it also burns people like you at the stake, or puts you in prison for 20 years, or me, or all these people. It just kind of rides in and we're all dead. So I believe
But it's
that
changing.
change is important, and that we need new models for these
Absolutely.
structures,
And it's
including business. And so maybe that's the place for us to
coming.
summarize in this.
It's coming. I think it's coming, and I'm positive. I think like David Hawkins said in his book, the consciousness level is now above 200. So we are now empowering ourselves.
So let's keep it going, huh?
Yeah, there's more and more, and it will go faster up because we are in this exponential growth, and there will be more and more people like us here who are positive thinking, bringing love, bringing connectedness in the world. And the money and capitalism, all this will just slowly die out. And I don't know, maybe this kind of people will be living one day on a separate continent and the rest will be living on the other, just like in the Bible,
But
there will
a key
be life
point-
left and right.
A key point here that I think is important to make is that those changes happen because of people like you, because of the people that are here, and that's why I'm here telling the story. Because if it wasn't for you, the people that are here that risk every day in their social networks to meditate a little bit more, to make that choice, to be present, to be conscious, to try new things, to be courageous and explore new ideas, then it would be a very dark world, I believe. And so let's bring the light. Are we aligned with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think it's
great.
It has been always like that in the history. We always progress little by little, but in small steps. And in the last 50 years or 30 years, the progress has been really very
It's
fast.
happening.
And it's happening thanks to internet and thanks to technology and thanks to oil. All these bad guys, initially they were bad. Nobody wants, even now, most of my friends will say, computers, iPads and all these gadgets, they're just killing you, I mean, our new generation, all these kids, they don't know how to communicate. But they obviously do. There's always, like with fire and with water, everything that nature gives us has two sides. Fire you can use to warm up your home, use it for good things, but you can also destroy it. You can burn towns. The same with water, with food. If you eat too much salt, you will destroy your body.
You got it.
Yeah. So everything has yin yang in it, and I believe that the internet is amazing, really. And it connected us all because we can't communicate telepathically, but we communicate with the internet these days. So it's a big advancement. And,
It's great.
And I think I'm really positive that things will change and we'll be all living happily ever after.
I love this. Let's do it.
Planet.
Thank you. Thank you for your time today. This is beautiful.
Thank you for your time and
It's really meaningful.
and your questions. Yeah, I didn't expect it to be this long.
I did not. But we're here. You had lots of wonderful things to say.
Yeah.
This is special.